A long time ago, in the big and beautiful kingdom of Aluker, there was a king named Kudusa. He was a strong ruler. His people respected him, and his palace was the biggest in the land. Kudusa had everything a king could ever want: gold, servants, and a great kingdom. But there was one thing he loved more than anything else: beautiful women. Kudusa believed that a woman had to be beautiful to be good. He thought this way because his mother, Queen Efara, was a very beautiful woman, and she was also very kind. So, he thought all beautiful women must be like her: kind, loving, and caring. One day, Queen Efara sat beside her son and spoke gently. "My son, listen to me. Beauty is not the most important thing in a wife. Some beautiful women have bad hearts. Some are witches, some bring trouble, and some have no respect. A good wife must have wisdom, kindness, and a pure heart. Do not choose a wife just because she is beautiful." But King Kudusa did not listen. He smiled and said, "Mother, you are wrong. Beautiful women are the best. I will only marry a woman who is as beautiful as you." The queen sighed and shook her head. She knew her son was making a big mistake, but she could not force him to listen. Kudusa spent his days looking for the most beautiful women in the land. He threw big parties and invited all the young ladies to dance before him. He smiled and laughed with them, thinking that beauty was all he needed in a wife. But he did not know that trouble was coming his way. One evening, during a royal festival, a woman appeared in the crowd. Her name was Zayura. She was the most beautiful woman Kudusa had ever seen. Her skin shone like the moon, her eyes sparkled like the stars, and her smile was as bright as the sun. Kudusa could not take his eyes off her. He asked his guards to bring her to him. "What is your name?" Kudusa asked, staring at her beauty. "I am Zayura, my king," she said with a sweet voice. "Where do you come from?" he asked. "From a faraway land," she answered. Kudusa was enchanted. He spent the whole evening talking to her, forgetting about everyone else. He did not ask about her family. He did not ask about her past. He only saw her beauty, and that was enough for him. That night, he told himself, "She is the one. She will be my queen." But Kudusa did not tell his mother about Zayura. He wanted to keep it a secret. He feared that Queen Efara would warn him again. So he started meeting Zayura in secret. He visited her often, and soon, he fell deeply in love. One night, without telling anyone, Kudusa lay with Zayura. He did not know that this act had tied him to her in a way he could not understand. A secret covenant had been made. From that night on, strange things began to happen. That night, King Kudusa had a strange dream. He found himself standing under a giant tree. Around him, there were many people he had never seen before. Some were laughing, some were dancing, and some were whispering to one another. "Who are you?" Kudusa asked, but no one answered. Suddenly, he felt himself sinking into the ground. When he looked down, he was standing in water. The people around him started to laugh louder, their eyes glowing in the dark. He tried to run, but his feet would not move. Kudusa woke up with a gasp. His heart was beating fast. He looked around his royal chamber, but everything seemed normal. It was just a dream, he told himself. But the next night, it happened again. This time, he saw himself sitting in a room filled with strange-looking people. They were playing games, clapping, and talking in voices he did not understand. Kudusa tried to speak, but when he opened his mouth, only laughter came out. He laughed and laughed, but he did not know why. In the morning, when he woke up, he was very tired. He felt weak, as if he had not slept at all. But he did not tell anyone about his dreams. Each night, the dreams continued. Some nights, he found himself under the water, unable to breathe. Other nights, he was running through a dark forest, chased by shadows. The more he spent time with Zayura, the worse the dreams became. Then one day, something strange happened while he was awake. One afternoon, King Kudusa was holding a meeting with his chiefs. As they discussed important matters, Kudusa suddenly started laughing. It was not a normal laugh. It was loud and strange. The chiefs looked at one another, confused. "My king, is something funny?" one of them asked. But Kudusa did not answer. Instead, he kept laughing. Then he started speaking to someone who was not there. "Who are you?" he asked, staring at an empty chair. "What do you want?" The chiefs were afraid. One by one, they left the palace, running for their lives. "Our king is cursed," they whispered. "Something is wrong with him." And from that day, things only got worse. Days passed, and King Kudusa's behavior became more alarming. He would sit alone, laughing at things no one else could see. At times, he spoke to people who were not there. The palace servants were terrified. Some even ran away, refusing to work for a king who behaved like a madman. The chiefs were worried. "If we do not find a solution," one of them said, "the people will lose faith in our king." One day, Kudusa was invited to a grand ceremony in the town square. It was a festival to celebrate the kingdom's prosperity, and as the first citizen, the king was expected to give a speech. Dressed in his royal robes, Kudusa stood before the people. They clapped and cheered for him, happy to see their king. But just as he opened his mouth to speak, something strange happened. He paused, his eyes looking far away, as if he was seeing something no one else could. Then, without warning, he burst into laughter. The laughter grew louder and louder until he dropped his staff and sat on the ground, still laughing. The crowd fell silent. "What is happening?" someone whispered. "Is our king mad?" another asked. Then Kudusa began to talk. "They are here. Look at them," he shouted, pointing at the air. "They are playing, they are calling me." But no one could see what he was seeing. The people gasped in fear. Some mothers grabbed their children and ran. Others stood frozen in shock. "This is not our king anymore," an elder said. "Something evil has taken over him." That day, the news spread across the kingdom. The king has lost his mind. The chiefs knew they had to act fast. But what could they do? Was there any hope for their king? After the terrible event at the festival, the kingdom was in chaos. People gathered in small groups, whispering about the king's strange behavior. "Our king is mad," some said. "No, he is cursed," others argued. In the palace, the chiefs met in secret. "What shall we do?" one asked. "If this continues, people will leave the kingdom." Queen Efara was heartbroken. She sat in her chamber, crying. "I warned him," she whispered. "I told him beauty is not everything, but he did not listen. Now look at what has happened." One day, a man from a nearby village came to the palace. He spoke to one of the chiefs and said, "I know your king. I have seen him many times in my village, visiting different women. Some of these women are known to be possessed. I have seen him leaving their houses late at night. He has brought this upon himself." The chief's eyes widened. Now, they knew where the problem had started. But was there a way to save their king? Or would he die with this burden? The kingdom remained in turmoil. People were scared, and the palace was filled with tension. The chiefs debated for days, but no one had a solution. The king's condition worsened, and he spent his days laughing alone or speaking to unseen figures. One fateful morning, the palace was shaken by a loud, sorrowful cry. The king's servants had gone to wake him, but when they entered his chamber, they found Kudusa lying still on his bed, his eyes open but lifeless. The news spread quickly. The king was dead. Queen Efara wept bitterly, mourning her son. The chiefs and elders gathered, realizing that their kingdom had lost its ruler most tragically. The people learned a hard lesson that day. Beauty is not always a sign of goodness, and wisdom should never be ignored. The warning spread far and wide. Men, be watchful. Not all beautiful women are what they seem. Subscribe to this channel to see more beautiful and moral lessons.